Apologizing for the frequent, almost daily staple really, blackouts. But businesses and households continue struggling. The country is currently on stage 3 of the electricity blackouts, and experts say blackouts might last for years. So what alternatives are businesses considering or implementing at this stage? Let me take you to eNCA's senior reporter, Aviwe Mtila, who is tracking that particular angle for us and has been engaging with a number of business stakeholders at various levels of business. So what is the picture, Aviwe, that is emerging? There are certain, small businesses that are completely paralyzed when the power goes off, not able to implement those alternative energy sources, but there's a range. Some have had to incur the costs of acquiring these. So what's the picture that's emerging from the conversations you are having with business?
Well, Pratulas, they simply have to adapt the prices of your generators, for example, and you can imagine these small businesses coming at the back foot of the looting that we saw earlier on this year. They're trying to recover, and as they try to recover, they were hit with load shedding. That means that they now have to make other arrangements that cost their pockets. Some of them haven't even paid rent, and it's the 10th of November now. But I'm in one of the suburbs, North Riding, one of the suburbs that's been quite the talk in the social media streets because of the hours of outages that they face. I quickly want to touch with one of the residents here before I move on to City Power's Isaac Manyan. I want to start with Hilton Giddich. Thank you for joining us at eNCA, but I want the picture of how often the outages come here in North Riding, and even maybe a picture of in a day how much power you actually have.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Just to put into perspective, maybe let's talk about yesterday. We had load shedding yesterday, which started at approximately 6 o'clock in the morning. That's as per schedule, and that we can live with. At the end of the scheduled period of time, we have no restoration of power. And 6.5 to 7 hours later, the power is then miraculously restored. We then have a further amount of load shedding, which took place at 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon, and the power was restored after 7 again. We had nearly 40 minutes total time between one load shedding and the next load shedding. It doesn't give time to recharge batteries, etc. The issue that I have with it is that we are being totally lied to continually. Nobody seems to care. Nobody seems to worry about it. The council blames ESCOM. ESCOM blames the council. I think from residents and as a tax-paying citizen of the country, those are issues that should not concern us. We pay for a service. That service should be rendered. The point is there doesn't seem to be any movement towards trying to normalize or get the situation under control. And it is affecting the economy terribly. And there is no attempt at all from anybody to actually resolve this issue.
Okay, let me actually get a word in with City Power's Isaac Manyan. I try to understand, because Isaac, thank you for joining us at eNCA, but realistically, North Riding has been facing spades of hours of load shedding and only restored, for example, you heard, for 40 minutes. Why is it difficult to restore power in these suburbs?
Thanks for having us, Aviwe. Look, we've had several issues around North Riding, which we are basically addressing. What happened, as the customers already mentioned yesterday, the issue of not returning back at the scheduled time after load shedding, were issues that we are dealing with ESCOM around there are problems with their go slow, with the people that are not responding when they're supposed to switch on. Most of our substations in this part of town are actually controlled by ESCOM in terms of switching on and off during and after load shedding. So as City Power, we often have to wait for ESCOM operators to come on site. Like, for example, the area that you're talking about, there's one transformer at Olivedale substation that supplies this area, including Bel Air Street, that is controlled manually, it's supposed to be controlled manually. Bring back up manually. But yesterday, even this morning, we had issues where operators were not dispatched early from ESCOM site, and we had to wait until after they've actually restored. But secondly, we had a situation where a third party actually cut our cable. We are basically currently busy fixing the line from Houtkoppen to ensure that this area has got redundancy. So that cable was also cut. We did communicate to the community. We did also put it on social media to show them that this is the cable that is we are busy currently fixing to ensure that we restore power. As I'm talking to you now, we have restored some of the residents that have been without electricity since the morning.
The problems that you're mentioning are really a city power and ESCOM problem, not supposed to be a residence problem. Why then load shed if you can't restore power on time? For example, we're expecting North Riding to be load shed at 2 o'clock. Are you still going to go ahead and load shed knowing that you won't be able to restore it on time?
Look, you are right, and we really do apologize to the residents about that. It's the issues that ourselves and ESCOM are supposed to be dealing with, but obviously there is that communication that's supposed to go out why there's no electricity, even when they see our trucks on site, even when they see our trucks on at the depot. So we are basically dealing with that.
In terms of load shed at 2 o'clock, knowing that you won't be able to restore the power at 4:30 when it's supposed to come back?
If we could have it our way, Aviwe, we won't load shed anyone across the city of Johannesburg. We have said that before, that load shedding is undesirable for anyone. But as I mentioned at the beginning of this interview, this area is switched off by ESCOM. It's not switched off by City Power. And so it's about us asking them to switch on or to switch on or off, and they can say no. And in the past, they did say no because they still need that capacity to ensure that we don't get to blackout.
You touched on a point around the go slow and ESCOM employees. A question that I asked ESCOM CEO yesterday, Andre de Ruyter, suggesting that there is this issue of go slow. He said there wasn't, but you come out with a statement, even confirming now, is then a go slow with employees of ESCOM?
ESCOM issued a statement last week. I don't know if their CEO did not get to read it, but they issued a statement last week where they basically indicated that they do have challenges with their manpower because of the go-slow that is happening within ESCOM. So we, as stakeholders, remember we are customers to ESCOM. We pay ESCOM about 10 billion annually for electricity. So we did not get communication that that go-slow has been resolved internally in the boardrooms with the executives of ESCOM. So where we are sitting and when we don't see action happening, customers complaining in Windsor here and also in North Riding, the only conclusion that we can get is that in the absence of that communication is that ESCOM's go-slow is still continuing. That's why we basically were writing a letter this morning to ESCOM CEO and their routing office to say we cannot have a situation where our customers are inconvenienced during load shedding. Your guys are not coming out to respond. They are not even responding to the calls. When our depot managers call to say, guys, North Riding or Windsor is about to be restored. I'll give you an example about Windsor yesterday. They went out at 2 o'clock. They were supposed to come back at around 4:30. By 17:50, they were restored. They were load shed again at 10 minutes later. It cannot be right. And every time we try to communicate that with ESCOM as operators, they don't respond to our calls. So that's why we basically issued this statement, and we're going to issue a letter formally complaining as a customer to ESCOM.
And realistically, it can't be right. You mentioned those hours, coming back for 10 minutes only after, for example, 5 hours of load shedding. These businesses that surround us here, what are they supposed to do?
It's a situation that really we are undesirable, really, because we, like I say, as the city of Johannesburg, that's why we are trying to find alternatives so that we move away from the over-dependence on ESCOM, so that our customers who are actually paying for that moving away. Remember, we signed a power purchase agreement with Kelvin Substation where we are paying them for extra capacity that we are supposed to basically exclude our people from load shedding. But ESCOM has got different views around that, but we are still engaging them around it. Our view is that the residents of the city of Johannesburg, if they are able to pay for extra capacity, they shouldn't be going through load shedding due to ESCOM's problems.
Okay, thank you very much. Isaac Mangena is a spokesperson for the City Power in Johannesburg, basically pointing the figures towards the direction of ESCOM, mentioning the go-slow that ESCOM is currently having. And when I quite pointedly asked ESCOM about it yesterday, they say they do not have a go-slow. But of course, as these back and forths are continuing and the finger pointing is continuing, it's the people on the ground, the residents, the businesses and the employees, their families that really feel the brunt of the ongoing space of load shedding.
Yeah, and you can distinctly pick up up the subtle tension or the tussle between Eskom and City Power on some of these matters, can't you, Aviwe? I mean, this whole issue around whether or not there was a go-slow, Isaac Mangena is absolutely correct, and you are correct. There was a statement on the 31st of October from Eskom saying some technicians had been on a go-slow, but it went on further to say that there was engagement and that the trade unions and the labor matters were resolved with the agreement that the technicians would resume with operations. But that subtle tussle is at play. All right, let's leave it there. That's eNCA's Aviwe Mtila out in North Riding there, engaging with some stakeholders, including the spokesperson of City Power, Isaac Mangena, about the situation. It's a double blow, really, for the people in areas like North Riding. There's a difficulty with the City Power systems, plus you have load shedding and the blackouts that we've been seeing. So when the power goes off, it doesn't return at the scheduled time because the complications within City Power network and systems kick in, meaning that people are left in the dark much longer than what Eskom would have communicated.